Hey, what's up? You're listening to the first ever Millennial Project podcast. I'm your host, Sam Stedman.
And I am Ethan Escrow.
And this is Kevin Jaramillo.
On today's show, we are talking about Donald Trump's drug epidemic, the single-payer healthcare system in America, or lack thereof, Rand Paul, a Republican with integrity. The Parkland students have started calling NRA politicians little bitches. In gaming news, we have the Far Cry 5 game that's coming out here on March 28th. Battlefront 2 has a new progression system, and Indiana Jones 5 has a production start date, which raises the question of there being too many sequels in Hollywood. And Ready Player One, Stephen King's novel, is set out to come out in theaters March 30th. So let's start off this conversation. Donald Trump this week had a response to the drug epidemic where he was talking about how he wants to treat drug addiction instead of treating it as a medical problem. He wants to treat it as a criminal problem. What do you guys think about this?
I think treating it as a criminal problem, it's somewhat extreme because to reinstate the death penalty for these particular drug traffickers and dealers, why not just make it life imprisonment to give them time to realize how severe their crimes were, and perhaps even give them a little more time to change their perspectives and realize the errors of their ways.
Yeah.
By putting them under the death penalty, I think that's just more draconian in nature.
Donald Trump's argument around that is that it costs more to imprison someone for life than it does to actually kill them. But my thinking is it's the morality of the thing. Drug addiction, I know people who have been on drugs and stuff, and Kevin and I both know people, and we know just from knowing those people, it's medical, and it's not criminal, because these people, they weren't bad people. They were suffering because they were in situations they felt like they couldn't get out of without these drugs.
And maybe in some cases they were just that desperate, and they felt that they had simply hit a low point in their lives and decided that narcotics was simply at least a temporary way out of facing the reality, and just couldn't live without it after delving into it for too long.
Yeah, I'd say we should be funding more towards perhaps rehabilitation centers, because I find it more of a mental problem.
Agreed.
I don't think death penalty is necessary.
Yeah, also it's a question of proper funding when it comes to this stuff, because excuse me, Donald Trump, he was gonna veto a bill, or he was gonna veto that spending bill that was coming up this week, because he was what did he say? He said something on Twitter along the lines of oh, it doesn't have proper law enforcement funding, and the wall's not being funded, because the wall apparently is huge to our national. Okay, I'm getting a little off topic, but it's important. Donald Trump, he's so focused on law enforcement, but what doesn't realize is that doesn't always work in every situation. Tough macho man force, it doesn't. It doesn't always work, particularly in drug situations, because if you look to countries like Portugal, they actually decriminalized all drugs, and they had a dip in drug use actually from that. I don't know the exact statistics on it, but that's just that's what I've read.
And furthermore, when you send them to rehab, it is more costly, but it does give these drug traffickers and dealers and victims a second chance, because even after rehab, they have another shot at being more productive members of society. But when you put them under life imprisonment or even the death penalty.
Yeah,
you
they don't
just
have any. They don't
waste-
have any chance at like rehabilitating
and you just waste
taxpayer
potential,
money.
or you waste potential at creating a new productive member of society.
Yeah, that's but yeah, but like ideally, what I think all cities should do is they should provide safe havens for people to do drugs if they want to do them. Like provide like clean needles. I know a lot of cities like do that now, but it's just it would stop like the spread of STDs if all drugs were just decriminalized. Where if you get caught with pot, like whatever, it's pot. Pot's never hurt anyone. But like if you get caught with meth or something, like they'll say like, okay, well, we can take you to a rehab center, or you can just go on like your merry way, depending on the context of the situation. If they like pull them over and they're driving high on meth, yeah, arrest them because they're putting other people in danger.
Exactly.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
but like with weed, like so many people are locked up because of like people say like, oh yeah, I got locked up for life for having pot. Really? I mean, who is that? Who did that hurt? If anything, you made people happy.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, they should just improve more funding, and I'm sure that scientists can come up with that.
It's like the non-alcoholic beverage of drugs or any narcotic.
Well, they say like weed and stuff, like it can. I think like when it comes to weed, there should be like an age limit, and I think for weed it should be 21 or maybe even like 25 because like people with okay when you smoke weed, uh, it affects your brain differently, especially in like teenagers. If you smoke weed like earlier in life, it can affect development. That's why I think like when it comes to that kind of thing, like you shouldn't be able to like do it till you're like 21, maybe even like 25 until your brain's like fully formed because after a certain point, if you do it like occasionally, like it's not even that bad for you. But
I just think there should be more medications to treat opioid addiction
Exactly.
yeah, I mean there are
or
medications
alternatives
now.
and other substances.
There's the problem with a lot of medications nowadays is that like
Sometimes it's too easy to get a prescription.
yeah, but like I don't know. This actually leads us into like our next subject, which is single payer healthcare. I wrote down here on the news roster that 45,000 people die every year due to lack of healthcare in the U.S. Can you imagine like how crazy that is? Like I saw this meme. Well, it wasn't really a meme. Someone just posted it. Someone posted online that they said, how do you get to a point in your life where you think that healthcare is a privilege and not a right? Like, if you can't afford it, you don't deserve it. Like, how do you get to that point in your life where you think like that? Like,
Exactly. Healthcare and maintaining health is supposed to be a right, and it shouldn't come at hardly any financial cost or any kind of cost.
it should. Well, like we watch Star Trek and stuff, and you'll notice like there was an episode of Star Trek where Dr. Bashir was like I don't remember the exact episode, but it was something along the lines of he was treating a patient, and the patient was like so amazed by him. She was like, "What? What do I need to give you in return?" He was like, "Nothing." He's like, "That's a stupid question. Why would you ask me that?" And that's like ideal for me when it comes to healthcare, because like in other countries, like medical bankruptcies aren't a thing. People don't go bankrupt because they couldn't afford their medical bills. I mean, it's not your fault that you got like cancer or something. But okay, I do admit like some people do make poor choices when it comes to their health, but I don't know. I'm just a kind of person who thinks that like they should. It doesn't make sense for people to go bankrupt.
And plus, it's only common sense that that medication and maintaining health is not something one should take for granted. It's just something that you don't have to expect anything in return for. You just like maintain, and you ask someone for help, and when they provide you that help, they shouldn't have to ask you to pay them, because it's like with all medical personnel, doctors, nurses, EMTs, kinesiologists, and all the others, they're expected to carry out their duties as it simply is, as a duty, and not just a job that provides income and provides your own lifestyle.
Which brings the funding into question, that it probably should be funded through taxes. And if I have to, if people have to take a little cut on their checks to get ideally, I'm vouching for universal health care.
Well, like the thing is, like you wouldn't even have to take that big of a hit on your check, because like the $300 a month you'd be paying now would just be replaced by a little bit of taxes. Like in the end, you'd be saving money with universal health care. I mean,
Sure, now like to start this process, it would be.
you'd be spending more money up front,
Yeah.
definitely. But like I wish Bernie would go out in there and say like, yeah, your taxes will go up, but your bills will be cut. Like you won't be paying as much in bills, because like I'm gonna get rid of your premium that you have to pay. I went on healthcare.gov right before Trump repealed the individual mandate. They wanted to charge me, a healthy 25-year-old, they wanted to charge me like $380 a month for healthcare.
What do the upper 1% have to say about this, and as to who will pay the taxes?
Well, it's like it's an American culture thing. Like a lot of people in the U.S., they don't realize that we're the only like major country on earth to not guarantee healthcare to all its citizens. Like they don't think about that. They think like, oh, this is just the way it is in our country, and they don't think. I know.
It's all privatized.
But yeah, okay, I'll admit there's a lot of good things about the United States, and that sounded weird, me saying that. I'll admit there is really good things about the U.S., like particularly our Bill of Rights, like our constitutional freedoms, like freedom of speech. Our country's the best when it comes to that kind of stuff, but when it comes to healthcare, I think we're ranked like 37th in the world. Out of 180 countries, we're like 37th. Now, if you're a rich mofo, you have a lot of money, yeah, we have the best healthcare in the world.
But when you're less than the upper 5%, then you're gonna have your work cut out for you, just either paying your bills or just paying to see a specialist.
Yeah, but it's just we just need to have a system where the government can tell insurance companies like, this is what you can charge for a checkup, for surgeries and stuff like that, because the government's like the only the authority figure that can do that. And a lot of people argue that it'll be a downgrade as far as our health insurance goes when it's made public like that. But like the VA is single payer.
The Veterans Administration?
Yeah, the VA is a single payer healthcare system. It's paid through our taxes, and a lot of veterans actually like it. I admit it's probably frustrating for some people, but I've heard a lot of veterans say that they actually like the VA, not having to pay, and they could just go and speak to people if they're ever feeling messed up in the head or whatever.
Despite the fact that a lot of veterans feel that going to the VA to seek the help or treatment that they need is rather a sign of weakness instead of a sign of just knowing what they have to do to get on with their lives and put the past behind them.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought putting this in here, I think it's one of the most important issues of our time because I always imagine like what is it like if like an alien comes to our planet and they like look at the United States and they're like, oh, like when someone's sick, like you don't just help them. Like you say, wait, give me some money first, or like you treat them and say, okay, now pay up. It's like what that's so like crazy. Just the basics of it is crazy. I guarantee you, like ideally, if there was no money, every sane person wouldn't have a problem with free like healthcare. If you like catch my drift.
No, I understand.
Wouldn't that also bring about, say, the end of capitalism and just establish a free trade system?
Well, I think capitalism's a good system. It's definitely better than like communism, but capitalism, it needs to
Become more social.
it needs to be sprinkled in. Socialism needs to be sprinkled in there because there are certain things that need to be off limits as far as a for-profit motive go. Because when it comes to single-payer health, when it comes to healthcare, it's morally bankrupt to make that a for-profit system. Like you're making profit off of people's uh, lives and like their sickness.
Yeah, the cost to have a child here is about what?
It could be astronomical for some families.
36,000, say average. And then in Canada, to have a baby, it's free. I'm probably gonna cross the border just to have my kid.
I wouldn't blame you.
Canada does have a certain appeal to it, but this Canada, it also I went to Canada a few years ago actually, and man, Canada was nice, but it was also very expensive, and from what I hear, Justin Trudeau, he's kind of like Obama in a way, but he's more left. Because Obama, when I looked at Obama, he seemed to me like he was kind of a moderate Republican. He was a 1980s moderate Republican. Because Obamacare, the system we got, it was actually endorsed by the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank. And it was Mitt Romney's plan when he was governor of Massachusetts. Obamacare is it's a right-wing healthcare plan because it's the answer to single payer. Okay, single payer is a left-wing plan where everything is publicized and the government pays for all insurance. What would be the opposite of that? Private insurance. Private insurance where you are forced to have private insurance because everyone's covered with the individual mandate, or is supposed to be. Everyone's supposed to be covered with the individual mandate under Obamacare. And then with the left-wing plan, everyone's covered. But I don't know. I don't feel like I'm making a lot of sense here. But it's just single-payer healthcare is what we ideally should have got instead of Obamacare. But Obama, being sort of a moderate Republican, he went with a right-wing plan. I don't know why he did that. I was thinking he might have done that because he thought maybe a few Republicans would vote for him, but not a single one did. They wanted the far right healthcare plan where it's free market everything and like competition will lower prices, but what they don't realize is that these insurance company, they work in cahoots with each other. Like
They work to monopolize.
they
the
work to
premium.
monopolize.
Exactly.
They're like, okay, if everyone raised their prices, then everyone will have to like pay more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Doctors in Canada are actually protesting for a lower rate or wage.
And this also
I
further
heard about
emphasizes your point of the moral bankruptcy of this medicinal monopoly.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if at the end of the day you don't agree with single payer healthcare, you have to agree that a for profit motive when it comes to healthcare, it's not right. And I know a lot of like right wingers would say, like, oh, well, uh, we do this because we want to innovate. Like, we have the most innovative system in the world. Well, government funding can also spur innovation. I'm sure there's like,
It just has to be applied in the right place.
yeah. But I mean, the CDC is now finally doing like research into like gun violence
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, Fort Worth just had their March for Our Lives movement yesterday for the protests of gun violence
Yeah. That actually,
in our country. It's going on right now.
yeah, I know I talked to my cousin a while back, and he's pretty pro gun, but when I talk to him, I seem to come from a place that's anti-gun, but I'm not really anti-gun by any means. I'm actually pretty pro-gun. It's just the thing is like I think we should have stricter laws when it comes to that.
Like maybe more extensive background checks and more,
What I think
and
we
maybe
should,
perhaps even a psychiatric evaluation for those who apply to have a license to carry a firearm.
yeah, it's pretty. I want to just see like what we can do. Like if we can do a universal that okay. Like I was saying earlier, another really good thing about the U.S. is our Second Amendment rights, because the purpose of that, it was created back, back when the Constitution was written, back in like 1787. It was created because the colonists at the time were wanting to,
Revolt.
well, they wanted to prevent another tyrannical government like Great Britain was. So they were like, let's add in this Second Amendment so that citizens can arm themselves against a tyrannical government.
And therefore prevent further bloodshed like during the Revolution.
And the thing is, the NRA has hijacked the conversation around guns and stuff. I watched a video the other day about this. The NRA has made it to where they can. Their goal is not to find solutions to the gun crisis. Their goal is to protect the product, because they receive money from gun manufacturers like Smith and Wesson and
Colt.
Yeah, Colt. Are they still a thing? Colt? I don't know. I know Smith and Wesson is, but they receive money from gun manufacturers. So if I was receiving money from someone and they told me to take a certain opinion on something because of this money, like, you're gonna do it. If I gave you $40,000 to go outside and take your pants off, you'd do it in 5 seconds because it's $40,000.
And it doesn't harm anybody.
Well, I mean,
except maybe embarrass yourself, but yeah.
I'm just saying, like, money, you gotta follow the money with this, but okay, we saw something similar in the past, like with the tobacco industry back in the day, like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The tobacco industry, their job was to protect the product. they didn't want to find solutions to the to why so many people were getting lung cancer. They wanted to protect tobacco, and they would say they would go on news shows and stuff and say things along the line of,
It's a
well,
miracle drug.
the we're not sure about the research as far as tobacco goes, and there's no conclusive evidence that it causes there's no conclusive evidence that it causes lung cancer or any kind of cancer, even though there was conclusive evidence. And we're seeing the same thing today with guns. I think the thing we have to do is we have to look at we can't let money like control the system anymore, because the NRA receives money from these gun makers, and then they give that money to politicians. There's a lot of, I think most Republicans receive money from the NRA, which in my book is a reason not to vote for them.
Because that just translates to bribery.
Well, it proves that they're sellouts. Now, Marco Rubio, he did a town hall where he said that no, they buy into my ideology. It's like, dude, then what's the point of them giving you that money? I don't know. It's frustrating because like money like corrupts everything in our system. And as far as like one of the I had a survey call me the other day, and they asked me like, what's one of the most important issues of our time? And they listed the basics like healthcare, education, the economy. But my thinking is like, no, the most important issue of our time is to get money out of politics. Because money corrupts everything.
Yeah, Russia's supporting the NRA. Not legally just yet. It's probably, we'll find out in a couple months.
And that also reminds me of how Rubio was interviewed by several kids from the Parkland Students March, and they asked him about what they thought was, I don't remember the exact question, but it was a yes or no question regarding the status of regarding the NRA, and he kept avoiding the question. And that to me, as Sam was mentioning earlier, that he was basically copping out or whatever, just trying to avoid the topic.
Politicians do that all the time because, like, with politicians, they don't want to say anything that's quote unquote controversial. Donald Trump, though, he just didn't give a fuck when it came to that kind of thing.
He just didn't think it through. He just jumps the gun and doesn't like analyze or think long term of the pros and cons of his decisions.
Well, Donald Trump, like he was a right wing populist. Like he said, like on the campaign trail, he would say things that made sense to me, at least. Like he said like he wanted to get out of the wars. As far as he wants to get out of the wars. Okay. I agree with that. Yeah, let's get us out of the wars. But why don't we get out of the wars? Why is it so difficult to just rip off the Band-Aid? Can anyone tell? Well, because money. The military-industrial complex, they make money off war. As long as there's profit in war, like mankind's never gonna know any like peace.
There'll just be continual warmongering, and something will set off a powder keg that would be an already tense situation, and it just happens again and again, like roughly every generation, till for like the foreseeable future and maybe beyond.
Yeah, and now Trump has appointed that one dude, John Bolton. Oh my god. I didn't know much about him till just recently, but just reading that dude, he is dangerous.
He is basically a Hawk 2.0.
Well, he's he was one of the architects for the Iraq War, and he also talked about doing a preemptive strike on North Korea. This really frustrates me because how fucking stupid are you to do a preemptive strike on North Korea? You must have no brain cells. If you strike North Korea, what's going to happen? They're going to strike
back.
They're going to strike South Korea. And then millions of innocent South Koreans and North Koreans will die because you didn't think it through and you're a dumbass.
It's like what my dad and I were having this conversation yesterday. We were talking about a plain and simple fact, and from his experience, that nobody ever wins a nuclear war.
Yeah.
Because even if you strike one nuclear power first, that you're going to get hit back at the same time, because we won't be able to, we might be able to stop most of the nukes that are launched at us, but a few at least will get through, and we'll still have the problem of radiation, being forced to go underground, having no infrastructure.
Well, the thing, I just don't understand how these people don't think about this stuff. Like, millions of Koreans are going to die if you just strike North Korea, because North Korea, Kim Jong-un, he's sitting up there in North Korea right now, and I know exactly what he's thinking. He's thinking if he gives up his nukes, the U.S. is going to go in there and topple him. He knows as soon as he gives up his nukes, the U.S. will go in there and topple him. So he's like, no, I'm going to hold on to these nukes because I saw what you did with Gaddafi and I saw what you did with Saddam Hussein, who supposedly had nukes, but we found out years later he didn't actually have any nukes. Bush just went in there to
weapons of mass destruction.
He went in there because he wanted oil.
And besides, and knowing of their alliance, how do we know that China will or will not react to any of this, or how they will react?
China's supporting North Korea.
That's my point.
And yeah, that causes an even bigger problem. If we strike North Korea, China's gonna be like, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?"
That they'll have a reason to strike at us. Plus, furthermore, we have bases in the South Pacific in Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, among others, and they'll even hit Australia, possibly New Zealand if they feel like it.
I just want to go back to the topic of guns in general. Like, just growing up as a millennial, we never had lockdowns as much as we've had recently. And even at work now, as an adult, we had an active shooter training. And this touches on the lives of like parents out there, but the older adults, and I do mean older, they're like, no, when I went to school, we never did anything like that. Everyone got along fine. There were no crazies there. Well, there was more aggressive violence in the streets back then. Instead of, probably they didn't have access to more modern ARs as we do now, and there's a whole lot of connections to that. And I just feel like I don't want, school teachers teaching first graders to hide in the closet. Just imagine that, your kid going to hide in the closet at school, just, to practice for these lockdowns. And that's not right. Like, sure, yeah. And then the rights response, or I've seen some comments on Facebook, they're like, oh, give it up to the kids who eat all the Tide Pods to march against their own rights. That's what they're saying.
They're not marching against their own rights, though. It's like no, we're asking for basic common sense gun reform, but a lot of right wingers jump to the conclusion that means, oh, you're gonna take away all our guns. It's like, whoa, slow down. You're acting like a child here. We say one thing and you jump to the extreme. We're talking about taking away guns that civilians don't really need.
Like the AR-15.
I saw there's that. Have you heard about that guy, Steven Crowder?
Yeah.
He's a right-wing YouTuber, and he does these Change My Mind segments, and he goes, okay, I know why he does that. He does that, and he genuinely wants to change his mind, but he will only change his mind to the extreme of banning all guns. I know that's what he's thinking in his head. He want, but he goes to like college campuses and he's like, people say, well, we want to ban assault rifles. He's like, well, what is an assault rifle? It's like, it's a gun that shoots like 30 rounds a second. It has a high capacity magazine, and it's not a pistol, and it's not a shotgun. And like, I also talked about this with my teacher, that like, you don't need an assault rifle to really defend your home. I I am fine with pistols, shotguns,
Even assault, like,
rifles. I'm fine with like even like bolt action rifles.
Exactly, because they don't fire so many rounds being semi-automatic.
And you know what? I'm even fine with semi-automatics. It's just
Besides 30 rounds from an assault rifle, that's just overkill. You just need to be able to hit whoever's either breaking into your home or trying to harm you in the right place.
I would say more like incapacitate. That's all you need.
Like whether in the leg
yeah,
or
it
the
depends on how crazy the
shoulder.
person is. But
Well, once he's incapacitated, you just wait till the cops come.
well,
and
I
hogtie
just
him.
know personally, like, I don't think I'd have the heart to kill anyone.
Exactly. Nobody should. I mean, it's sad the fact that we have to have our security systems in place now.
Furthermore, violence is the pleasure of fools and the last resort of wise men, and the only justifiable excuse for practicing it is when it's to protect what is rightfully yours.
Yeah,
I go along with the saying, hurt people only hurt people.
Pretty much.
And so that's why I pay it forward, try and be kind, do one good deed a day for every, random person.
Because
well,
That'll help keep the world flowing.
with the that was interesting that you said like that those kids are marching against their own rights. It seems like those kids are being better leaders than our actual leaders because they're saying, okay, yeah, we're tired of this happening every 20 minutes and we just want something to be done. You know what? There's also a thing called repeals, and like no one talks about this, but I think it's important. There's a thing called repeals, and like if we ban guns, supposedly, let's say if we ban all guns and it doesn't work, well, we can always just repeal the law.
Mm.
But also, if we just banned all guns, I guarantee there'd be no more gun violence. But if everyone has a gun, then there is going to be more like gun violence, regardless of like the intent behind it.
I don't know how many shootings I read about every week now. Maryland last week, and what was that? That teacher trying to show the students he shot around in the ceiling. Oh my gosh!
I saw that video where that dude. It was an old video though.
Yeah, it was. I think he was just trying to like demonstrate gun safety, but just ironically accidentally fired one off.
He was like, okay, kids, this is. He like shot his leg a little bit. He was like, and that's why you always keep the safety on.
And there was another one that showed this one guy like shooting at a target. He was just setting it up, but somehow he didn't have the safety on. And when he was setting it back in his holster, he accidentally shot himself in the leg, and he came back walking around saying like, "I just fucking shot myself. Oh, son of a bitch! I just shot myself."
How'd that go?
That was just a hilarious irony, I think.
I've only had a few experiences with guns. Like, I think the only time I actually killed something was out when I was camping with a friend in Decatur, and my first kill was a bird. And I'll never forget that experience because, like, what was the point of shooting the bird? I don't understand hunting at all. I just don't understand it as a sport.
That's also something my dad and I talked about yesterday. Hunting it should really be only for food and survival and not for sport.
Exactly.
And that's why he says that even as popular as it is, and even with the NRA promoting it, he would never kill a deer, not even, especially not to display its head on a trophy case.
Well,
Because like what right do we have to kill creatures that have done us no harm?
there was an episode of Star Trek Enterprise where they landed on a planet, and the planet was used just for hunting. And Captain Archer was like, this is weird. And the aliens were like, how so? And he was like, hunting on Earth went out of style over 100 years ago. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that like they were looking forward like that. Like one day hunting will go out of style.
No, maybe not the camo fashion.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Ethan, dude, we need to go like play paintball again because that was fun.
Exactly. It
Uh,
kind of like gives us an authentic feeling of what it's really like to shoot at and be shot at. Even if it was a long while back or the last time we did so, I wouldn't mind doing so again.
Yeah. Well,
But I've never been like one to think, oh, well, I mean, probably because I'm not crazy, but even like, what is it, Donald Trump's response saying video game violence is
that's a
causing
dodge.
all this. That's his scapegoat, yeah.
Because the NRA does that. They'll blame everything but the product that they're trying to protect, and so like
Just to keep the ratings and sales pitches up.
yeah,
Although I am looking forward for Far Cry 5.
yeah. Well, the thing is like it's sad where we've gotten because
Yeah.
yeah.
I would have never thought I'd go into work just to have a meeting about active shooter on. And now they're teaching not to hide. They're saying to fight the shooting. I'm all for that.
But I think
There's
that
no point in the Virginia Tech shooting. Like,
and I think that teaching them to like
There's
fight
any
the
point in
aggressor and not
shooting?
and to fight the aggressor and not just hide from them, I think that might be translated as taking on a more active role to preserving yourselves.
they said, imagine if you had a child with you, or your niece or your nephew, or someone you know,
Right,
who's a
who
baby.
would obviously be
Now what would you
unable to
do?
defend themselves.
Would you still run and hide, or would you actually try and attack the shooter?
I don't know what I'd do in that situation, honestly.
Because we only have our instincts, we have to rely on them, and it's only when we face those circumstances we realize what we're actually capable of.
As soon as I see someone reaching for a gun, I'm gonna try and tackle the person. I'm not gonna.
Now, if the person was directly attacking me, yeah, of course I'd fight back. But if like I don't know, it's one of those situations like I don't know how I'd react until I was in the situation, and until then,
Let's watch Cops. How would you react if you had to chase someone with a gun or go inside a building? I don't know.
Sometimes whenever I think about certain scenarios and how I think I should react to them, I usually try to like play them out as realistically as possible and try to think about based on myself how I would react to them and how maybe I could perhaps improve on how to react to them so that maybe I could stand a better chance at either surviving or resolving the situation altogether.
dude, do you remember that guy when we went to Cotton Patch a couple weeks ago? That guy asked us if we could give him a ride.
And you saw that he had a knife
He
on
had a
him?
knife right there, a big knife too. It was like a Bowie knife or something. It was right there on his pant leg, and I was like, "No, we're not giving you a ride."
And he was probably a junkie because he had hardly any teeth. And
Yeah, he had like one tooth.
and he didn't look clean. And for a while after that, while we were eating at Cotton Patch, Sam kept expressing his paranoia that he might be waiting for us out
Yeah,
there.
because I had like a premonition. I had a dream that we were attacked by a similar person in a parking lot, and I was like, fuck.
So we asked the manager if
Well, I told the waiter, I was like, "There's some sketchy guy outside."
So we asked him. So we asked him to tell the manager that there's a suspicious-looking guy out there, and if they could like send him away because we don't know what he might be lying in wait for us.
Well, nothing happened, but still, that just that made me a little uneasy. But
We could have been the most friendliest guy you know. Why didn't you give him a ride?
because he had a fucking knife.
Or perhaps he could have busted into my car at some point, and as we were getting ready to drive out, he pops out like behind us, and we're like, screaming at each other, like, what the fuck?
As long as you like a car, right?
But if anything happened, and if he did try to hurt us, I guess I'd probably be the one to hold him down, getting restrained him while Sam basically beat him up, and we wait for the cops to show up and take care of the
Got
rest.
rid of that last tooth.
And just wait for him to take it from there.
Yeah. So next up we have Far Cry 5 that's coming out here pretty soon. A lot of people have been like complaining lately. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. Microtransactions are becoming a lot bigger in video games now, and
I wonder if the whole game is first person. It's just first person.
yeah.
I was just curious. I've never played a Far Cry 5 or a Far Cry game, any of those franchises, but
Me neither.
after I've watched some YouTube videos on 5, that looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks like it'll be pretty good, but I don't even know if I'll have like the money, cause
For all those updates and add-ons, special features.
I think
well, that's all free.
Well, I think for $10 more you can get the deluxe edition of Far Cry 5. But seeing the gameplay, there's bears, there's wolves. I don't know if you can even have them as pets.
But you're never a big fan of like single player focus.
No,
that would be cool though.
Is it multiplayer or no?
Oh, I think it is co-op. I don't know. I might get it when it comes out.
I might play a demo reel of it just to see what kind of gameplay it offers.
I don't know if there is a demo.
Well, just
it's a shooter.
Right.
It's like Call of Duty.
If you get a chance, check it out on YouTube.
But if you get to like fight like crazy people as part of this underground cult, along with having to defend yourself against wildlife, that does sound promising to me.
No, it's exciting.
I saw a video where there's this church that was like blessing AR-15s or whatever. Like they were praying next to them, and there was a priest and he was blessing them. I'm like, oh, that's so bizarre.
I feel like
I'm thinking now I know who's
so
a nut job.
I posted in the comments. I was like, so Far Cry 5's based on a true story, and I got like 50 likes on that comment. But I was like, that's so dumb. Like, that just shows like the culture here in the U.S. Like,
I think it's very very far-fetched right-wing extremist culture that they make fun of in that game.
I think a certain saying from Full Metal Jacket comes to mind with like, this is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun. But that's how bizarre it sounds
it also goes into like, is that what like God would approve of, or like Jesus or whatever?
So.
Like, it's like AR-15s.
I don't think so.
Those were in the Bible, so. It just shows a lack of like intelligence and a lack of like thinking.
Or charisma.
Charisma.
Charisma, yeah.
Charisma. Wow, this game's really chaotic. It's charisma. You know what? You're fired. Get out.
Excuse me.
No, but what I wanted to talk about was the microtransactions.
Now go back to charisma.
Okay.
Just kidding.
So, like, charisma. No!
Character.
Who told you to say charisma?
Chiropractors?
Chiropractor.
Sorry, no, I was having fun.
Hey, do you want to get a churro after this?
A churro.
No, it's pronounced churro.
Do you not want to do chores at your house?
So I wanted to talk about the microtransaction controversy, and it's the thing. It's kind of sad that nowadays is that like microtransactions have become so prevalent in games because it. I understand why gaming developers do it, but I just miss like the old games where you didn't have to worry about that kind of
It's more of
stuff.
now like how Amazon does it with the upsell marketing strategy. Just try and sell your game, but hey, you want to look cooler or fancy or this new unique weapon you can't get anywhere else? Buy it too.
I don't. But when Battlefront 2 came out and they had their microtransactions with, and it was connected to the gameplay, I was like, man, fuck this. It was,
We were basically like paying to win. I mean, where's the fun in that?
I never paid it. I only buy
never-
games.
Me neither.
I never paid a dime. I mean, they fixed it now, but
Think of it like if you have a kid and now, like, I'm not saying us, but the younger generation now. What are they? Gen Z? Anyways, it's like they're the ones asking their parents for all these microtransactions, or even if their
yeah,
parents
they
have the
think
card already.
they think like it's normal,
Yeah.
but it's not. It shows like a culture of like greed in the gaming industry. Like EA, I'll admit they make some quality games, but man, they are greedy.
Evil corporation.
They'll milk you for every penny you have if you let them. And they also like Visceral Games. They were gonna make like a single player focused Star Wars third person shooter, and it was gonna be kind of like Uncharted. And like I was looking forward to it, but EA went in and shut down the studio.
It wasn't a game called 1313.
No, that was different. Disney shut that down. I was looking forward to that, but EA like they shut down this single player focused Star Wars game, and I was like, damn, that would have been cool. But now EA's rebranding it. They're gonna make it an open world like live service type game because that's where EA gets most of their money, from live services instead of games. And I have a feeling in the coming years like EA is gonna shift their focus to live services, which is gonna suck, at least. But like kids now, like I grew up with like the 360 and like the GameCube and that.
Some PC.
The PS2.
PC was my first real game.
My first console was the Nintendo 64, but PS2 I think I have the most vivid memories of because I think I played more games on that one than any other console.
Yeah, PS2 had some good games. Actually, I was thinking about. Excuse me.
You still have your PS2, Sam?
Me too.
Somewhere.
Yeah, I still have mine. Still
I
play it.
know
Even.
where it is.
I want to go back. You know where my PS2 is?
In the closet.
Oh.
Remember we used to play Battlefront 2?
Yeah.
the good one.
Oh, well, I want it back because I wanted to play some of the old God of War games.
They made it for PS3.
I don't
Remastered
have
it.
a PS.
And speaking of PS2, remember LucasArts before it got shut down?
Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. That was my...
You
Yeah,
used to
that
have
was
that.
Yeah, I
That
used to
was
play it all the time.
Yeah, me too.
And, yeah, and also Star Wars Starfighter, Jedi Starfighter, the first Battlefront. I remember when I played the hell out of it when it first came out.
I think
Oh,
the best
yeah.
one was this. Why didn't they just remake Battlefront 2? Oh,
And even Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith on PS2.
You remember when our friend Steven came over that first time with Battlefront 2? And we were like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, Battlefront 1 was freaking amazing, but when Battlefront 2 came out, we were like,
Droidicas!
Like we had no life.
Yeah.
Right?
Battlefront, like the new one's okay.
They said they were bringing some new game modes, and I'm
They,
curious to
they
see
could
that
just
stick around.
remastered the old games.
That's what I'm
Shit.
saying. They should have just remastered it for us at least, the people who grew up and probably have a job and could afford it, not the new kids.
And
like,
who-
with
and
the
who actually, like,
microtransaction
lived a
system.
life. Yeah. And not for today's kids who rely on their phones to have fun, and not like us when we grew up playing in the creek or doing stuff outside, building forts, doing stupid stuff, getting in trouble. Those were the good old days of growing up.
Well, now society's gone to a violent part, so
And it's going to technological and non-personal in raising our kids.
I like the technology part. This is an interesting time to grow up in. I want to see how our future is. Even, like Tesla, who was it, the owner of Tesla? He just deleted, like, I think out of not a dare, but I think it was a dare. He deleted his Facebook.
Why?
He deleted Tesla's Facebook and SpaceX.
Why?
I don't know, but the evilness of Facebook too.
Social media.
Yeah.
And like how some people are saying that Mark Zuckerberg is basically responsible for creating the problem of young people relying on social media to interact with one another, not interact with each other personally.
I forgot what position he held, but in Facebook. But he even said that Facebook is just an environment to track, to track you.
I thought about deleting my Facebook, but
I'd want to, but I need a part of my social media for my side.
Same
business.
here. Even with Instagram, I don't even use Instagram that much.
You don't do the selfies every week.
Nope. Because what's the point? It's just a show of vanity and having too much time on your hands.
sorry. Yeah.
Who's next for the roster?
Potential movie news: Indiana Jones has a production start date. Indiana Jones 5.
What is that even going to be about?
Exactly. We
I
don't
don't
even
know.
need it.
His funeral?
Well, I think Shia LaBeouf was going to take over, right?
Oh god.
Ugh.
Harrison Ford's supposed to be in this one.
But
He was in the last one too, wasn't he?
But Shia LaBeouf,
Yeah.
he should not come back because nobody even likes him anymore.
I like
Only
Ew.
because he was a douche.
him. He was not a douche.
Even with that video of him saying, "Just do it."
How is that douchey?
I don't know. It's just his way of getting an additional 60
It said
seconds of
it's
attention.
said to come out in 2020.
2 years. Well, it gives us a chance to wait and get
It
hyped up.
starting in April 2019.
Did they say anything about the plot or when it will take place?
Well, I'm looking right now.
I think it'll be about Shia LaBeouf, probably Harrison Ford's funeral, and then him taking on another adventure with architectural or something historical.
Or maybe bring in
I
the
like-
Transformers?
I kind of like the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull one, though. Did you not like it?
No,
Why not?
I liked it. It was okay.
it just didn't make that much sense to me because it didn't have the charisma of the original trilogy. Especially the Temple of Doom. It was the first Jones movie I saw, and that along with, but I think The Last Crusade was my favorite because it was more action packed and had a little more suspense, especially since it kind of delved into the supernatural and religious side of archaeology and finding artifacts and the like.
We watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, didn't we, at the old apartment?
I think so.
We watched, and then, remember when we tried to sit down and watch Casablanca?
And we ended up almost falling asleep.
Yeah, I was like, dude, this movie's so boring.
I know, and it's considered one of the greatest movies ever. Maybe it's just not to our taste or something. Even when we gave it a shot,
Yeah, if it doesn't have color, I'm not really interested.
except maybe
Except for the Three Stooges.
or even Charlie Chaplin's flicks like after we quit with Casablanca, we watched that one movie about looking for gold in Alaska.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
the Gold Rush.
The Gold Rush, yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin's movies are pretty good though.
And they kind of emphasize like the problems that we have even today.
Like his one, The Great Dictator.
In his final speech, it really, I feel like I can relate to that.
Well,
because it kind of like gives a glimpse into even my own viewpoint as to like how we could actually advance and progress as a society and move beyond what we are now.
And what are you going to do to achieve?
well, the reason I put this Indiana Jones 5 thing in here is because it raises the question of there being like too many sequels in Hollywood nowadays. Like I remember back in like 2010, everyone was saying like, oh, every movie that can be made has been made, or like everything that's been thought of has been thought of. It's just
I don't think so. Not yet, at least.
I
Not
don't know.
me
I don't
either.
ever know if there will be a point though when that comes to fruition.
I mean, come on. There's Sausage Party. Now, if everyone enjoyed that comedy by Seth Rogen.
I never even saw it. I wanted to, but
It was on Netflix. It's on Netflix now.
and plus it did raise some controversy as to like how people view religion, and
Was it what?
it did because it raised the question of like the way we see religion as to like whether there's an afterlife or what can we expect after we go from like life to post life, and what if it doesn't turn out to be what we always expected it to be?
Sausage Party?
Yeah, it raised that question. I read about it.
I don't know if we're talking about the
I
same
think
movie.
I think my friend Evan and I talked about it at one time, and we.
Are you talking about the animated food talking and it's like a comedy?
Yeah, that's the one. You're talking about a different one, aren't you?
No.
Oh, I thought
That's the one where the food.
Wait, what was the movie about though?
it was about.
No, I'm asking Kevin now. What was it about?
Sausage Party? It's about this hot dog who got picked up from the store, the local market, and basically it's a world where all the food talks. Like anything in a grocery store has its own mind and personality. And this hot dog got chosen. They go to the house, and it turns out they have to escape.
And that
basically-
raised questions about religion?
Yeah, because before they were taken, the life in the market was basically the way we see life ourselves, and when they were taken to people's houses, they thought it would be viewed as either just heaven or the afterlife in general, but then basically reality hit them when humans started eating them.
Well, that basically is. I mean, I'm not trying to like press down on your religious views, but what is there after death? Nobody really knows.
Exactly, because
So-
there's just so many unanswered questions.
Don't you think it's just to fantasize that, or not fantasize, but just have a good feeling
Right,
that people, when they pass, are in a good place?
right. But then again, religion tends to be organized by other people so that they can profit off of it. So we don't know for sure.
Wait, we don't know for sure what.
So we don't. I don't think all of us know for sure what exactly to believe as to what will happen to us after death.
Well, I just
Like
don't.
where will we go?
Well, it's not that I
It's just-
don't. I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced either.
I went to church all my life, and
Same here.
Same here.
like even when I was a kid, I thought about it, and I was like, how do you know that? Like it never really convinced me.
No, that's what I've been asking too. At first, I was convinced, but after going to the real world and graduating from a private school, I began to think, what if we're wrong, and what if we're wrong about certain elements? And I found my the beliefs I've been raised on basically challenged by things I began to see, that like differing viewpoints, and I began to realize that a lot of them actually do have some points to them themselves that are pretty valid. Maybe more. But anyway, that's just my opinion.
What about Slender Man coming out this summer? How about that?
Pause.
Yeah, it's coming out this summer, and from what I've heard, this was probably based on true events, and one of the, I think it was the father, was trying to sue Hollywood or the people making the film because they're using the case of his daughter who actually, like, I think it was a murder suicide that happened in school.
I've heard
I'm
about.
not sure, but I don't know. The creepypasta of Slender Man is just too cool in and of itself. I don't know. It looks pretty good.
I heard about Slender Man, but I don't even know that much about him. I might go see the movie though. Just I'm interested in like those creepy pastas and stuff like that.
I don't know what else. Deadpool 2 coming out. Saw the trailer for it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, first Deadpool was pretty good.
I thought it was even more clever that since now Disney owns Marvel, they could actually put Deadpool making fun of Woody.
Is he gonna be in the Avengers?
No, I'm not sure. He might be. They might throw him in there. I know there was a crossover when I played Marvel.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to the Millennial Project's first podcast. I'm Sam Stedman.
I'm Ethan Escrow.
And this is Kevin Harmio.